Well, after many episodes, the secret that we have all been waiting for has finally been revealed as the LMD plotline starts to seemingly wind down. Hey guys, Kim Arthur for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 12, Hot Potato Soup, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. As you guys know, I've really been enjoying this portion of the season, but I really didn't know where we were going to go from here, because especially after last week's extremely revealing episode, that honestly might be my favorite episode of the season. I mean, just such an incredibly revealing, great look inside the mind of Radcliffe and, everything that he's going through. I just thought that was such a well-done episode. I really didn't know where we were going to go here, because there was just so much potential for what could happen, and I have to say that this was a good episode. I didn't think this was a great episode. I thought this episode was a little bit more messy than some of the other ones have been, but I still really did enjoy it. We got the return of, I guess, fan favorite characters, but I never really remembered them, so it was cool to see them again. But we didn't focus as much on LMD. The LMD plotline was there, but it wasn't as in focus as the other stuff had been. And there were definitely some things here that I really didn't understand. But let's just get in this episode, because I definitely do want to talk about it. We did get one huge thing that, I think we've all been waiting for, but we start off and we get reintroduced to Sam and Billy Keonig. They're goofing around in an arcade, and two Russians come looking for them. They have instructions to take a Keonig alive and spot Billy at a machine. The other Russian spots Sam at the bar, and when he moves in, Sam throws a drink in his face. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I don't really remember these characters. I really don't remember Sam and Billy Keonig as characters. I know that they're obviously were on the show, but they've only been on like once or twice, and I really do not remember them. The last time I think we saw them was like the first, not even the back half, the first half of season 2. I don't really remember them at all, but they call Billy on his wrist radio. Billy runs out. Terrence hits him with a cattle prod, knocking him out. His men then run out. They load Billy into the truck and drive off just as Sam runs out. Too late to stop them. He calls Coulson and tells him that they have his brother. So this is essentially the setup for the episode, and en route by Quinijets, Coulson tells the team that he gave the Darkhold to Billy since he knows how to make things disappear. So now we know how this is actually connecting to the main storyline. Because at first I was a bit worried. I'm like, why are we seeing all this? What the hell does any of this have to do with the LMD? But no, it has to do with the Darkhold. And he figures that Radcliffe is responsible and has joined forces with Nadir to use her resources to find Billy. And Agent Davis reports that they've picked up Sam and he'll be arriving shortly. And Coulson says that Fitz is working on tracking down Radcliffe, which obviously is, Fitz's main motivation now that he knows all about the Radcliffe LMD. He is reactivating the Radcliffe LMD and realizes that Fitz has paralyzed it from the neck down and refused to say where the real Radcliffe is. And I like the way that we know that Fitz actually paralyzed this thing. Like, he genuinely is upset, and he's doing what he can to handicap it that way, so it can't do, what Radcliffe wants the machine to do. So Mac and Simmons then come in. They threaten to destroy the LMD, and the LMD says that he doesn't know where Radcliffe currently is, and he explains that he's a victim and things aren't as they seem. So as we start to see, the LMDs are starting to become quite upset. They're quite innocent, and I like the way we're seeing that the LMDs, while they may be programmed for evil, they themselves are not, and I think they're doing good way of setting that up. It just gives them character, and I like the way they've been doing that. So Terrence then brings Billy to a tied-up Radcliffe, and of course this is the real Radcliffe, and Billy says that they're ready to die, but Radcliffe isn't so sure if that's true, and the watchdog leader promises that the torture will come later, and he isn't able to watch. So once Terrence leaves, Billy complains about the pain and asks Radcliffe to kill him, and Radcliffe introduces himself and says that he told them that Billy had the Darkhold, and then they double-crossed him. Now, as we know, Radcliffe has been working exclusively with Nadir, so it's not really that jarring that he would be the one to, torture Billy, to torture Billy. It makes sense why he would be the one in lead to do that. In fact, it kind of seems like the obvious choice that he would be the one to do that. So Sam boards the Quinjet. He says that he traced the truck to the docks and then the trail disappeared. And on a submarine, Radcliffe insists that what he saw in the Darkhold expanded his mind. He suggests that Billy tells them where the book is and let it drive them mad. And that's basically what he wants to do. Because as we know, the Darkhold is way too powerful for anyone. It makes you extremely powerful no matter what you do with it. And a Russian comes in, sets out an onion, and then leaves, and a man then comes in, says that he's a ship captain. He demonstrates his knife skills on the onion. He then drinks some vodka with the onion to enhance the experience and says that the man is the superior machine. Now, we hinted at the superior last week. We didn't really know what that was about, but we find out that this man is in fact the superior, and the captain removes his coat, says that he is the superior man, picks up the knife and says that he likes pain. He prepares to cut off Billy's ear, and Radcliffe says that it's enough. He shrugs off the ropes and says that Nadir promised that Billy wouldn't be permanently damaged, and Radcliffe suggests that they get inside of Billy's head. So they're not trying to break him physically. They are, in fact, trying to break him mentally, try to pry any information he has, and do whatever they can to get him to not want the Darkhold, because obviously he's the one that has it. So in the S.H.I.E.L.D. lab, Simmons hooks up the LMD to the computer, says that if it doesn't cooperate, then Fitz will force the LMD to tell them everything, and Fitz discovers that there's an unknown piece of code and that the LMD starts convulsing and then starts speaking in different languages, and Fitz then stops, and they figure that the LMD is possessed, and the scientist demands to know who programmed the LMD, but it just bird whistles, and we don't entirely know what that's about, what's going on there, or how any of that makes sense, so that really was very weird to me. I didn't really know what that was about, but Sam and Daisy then review the footage from the video arcade, and meanwhile, Coulson tells May that he has no idea where the Darkhold is, which is why he gave it to Sam, and he says that he's lost too much, he doesn't want to lose May, which is why he didn't give it to her, and Coulson and May then join Daisy and Sam, and I love Sam's reaction to Daisy, just treating her like she's a big celebrity now that he knows she's Quake. I mean, just really fun to see. Patton Oswalt definitely did a good job with incorporating humor here, even if it wasn't exactly needed. I get why he did it, because the shows, this has been quite a dark season, but they've had a good amount of humor, and this is definitely a good way the show does that, but Coulson and May then join Daisy and Sam. Coulson tells Daisy to run the facial recognition on the Russians, and Radcliffe and the captain then strap a device to Billy's head. They give him a sedative while they map his brain. The scientist tells the captain that the secret to eliminating the humans is in the Darkhold, and that's why they want it, because that's how they're going to eliminate all the Inhumans. And that part of the episode I thought was very interesting, because we've kind of thought that, you know, Radcliffe wanted to do what he can to keep the Inhumans alive and preserve them, but no, it seems like he actually wants to destroy them, and that really doesn't make much sense to me on why he really wants to do that. As Daisy works, Sam stares at her. He finally says he's thrilled to be with Quake, and Daisy insists they know each other when she was Sky, and I like that she told him that, because, you know, these two have met before. This isn't the first time they've met, but of course she looks very different from the last time. You know, she has shorter hair, her hair's darker, and she has a different name. Back then she was Sky, now she's Daisy, and Coulson comes in as Daisy gets a match for Leo, Babakov, who is in SVR and Special Ops, and he was in the same SO division as the two men who tried to assassinate Mace, we find out. So, he's nowhere to be found this entire episode. I don't know why Mace is in here, but they all have ties to Olshenko, the Russian prime minister who an Inhuman attacked, and Sam figures that the Darkhold will show them how to wipe out the Inhumans, and admits that he knew that Billy was the one that had the Darkhold, and he says that the book is in fact secure, and they have nothing to worry about, but the LMD says that it has trust issues. Fitz then points out that Radcliffe betrayed him, and the fake Radcliffe says that Fitz was like a son to him, and tells him that Fitz is programmed by betrayal and abandonment, and Fitz tells Simmons that he can't break the coding. The LMD says that that's what Fitz's father used to say, that he wasn't able to do that, and admits that Radcliffe actually knew Fitz's father, and he's been working with Fitz far longer than we think he has, so Fitz insists that it is impossible. The LMD says that Radcliffe and Fitz's father were classmates, but Simmons figures out that it's playing mind games with Fitz. There's no possible way it could be true, and I was kind of wondering if that was actually going to be true, but no, this is clearly just the LMD trying to get into Fitz's head, because that's been Radcliffe's main method. He's been doing whatever he can to try to get Fitz on his side, to try to, you know, latch Fitz on him. You know, he's not really interested in, he doesn't really care about Fitz, you know, emotionally. He just wants to work with him. And undeterred, the LMD says that Radcliffe and Fitz's father weren't friends, but they went to work on the same train. As the LMD says it saw Fitz's father a few months ago, Fitz then shuts it down, walks out, and obviously there's a lot to process there. You know, he doesn't know if what the Radcliffe LMD is telling him is actually true. You know, he doesn't know if Gemma's actually certain with what she's saying, but Ada then oversees the cerebral mapping, and Radcliffe asks the captain why he dislikes the Inhumans so much, and the captain says that the Inhumans have great power, but they didn't earn it, and they're unnatural things. And I like that we saw that Radcliffe is not actually okay with what the captain's doing. He doesn't understand why the Superior would want to just, you know, risk the Inhumans like that. So he promises that they will destroy the Inhumans, and the thing that brought them, and basically he feels that they didn't really earn this power. They've just kind of developed it, and he doesn't really feel like it's something that they genuinely should have. And Ada then announces that the procedure is complete. A soldier takes Billy to the brig, and Radcliffe then hooks himself up to the device. He sees Billy making a Darth Vader toy, and Sam tells the team that Billy can't tell Radcliffe where the Darkhold is because he doesn't know. He actually gave it to Billy, we find out. So he does not know where it is, and Radcliffe sees Billy hand off the Darkhold to Sam. He tells the captain that they have the wrong man. He figures that the other Keonig was in fact a replica. So Sam tells the team that he gave the Darkhold to Special Agent L.T. Keonig, the first one who got them into S.H.I.E.L.D. into S.H.I.E.L.D. we find out. And Coulson figures that they have to pick L.T. up, obviously, because this is the person who has the Darkhold. They can get the information they want out of him and protect him the best that they could. And this is where the episode starts to get a bit messy, and I didn't really know where we were going to go from here. But in all, Simmons tells Mac that Fitz needs some space. He asks about Fitz's father, and Simmons says that the father wasn't not a good man, and he walked out on his family when Fitz was 10, and Fitz doesn't want to find him because his father was not a good guy. He really was very much against the Fitz family, and he doesn't really want to have any sort of relationship with him. So I do like the way that is tying into how Fitz has this utter disdain and very bad memories of his father. It triggers all this bad history that they have, and I like the way that was done. But Daisy and Davis then go to the club that is LT's last location, where while Coulson and May wait outside in the truck, Coulson gets May green tea and figures that they should be grateful that the two of them are still standing, and they toast to that, and May suggests that they should try something else. Daisy interrupts to say that they should get into the club, and on the stage, a Keonig gets up on the stage, performs a routine ranting against the media and S.H.I.E.L.D., and a woman then grabs Davis, orders him outside. Daisy comes over as the woman draws a gun. Coulson comes in, tells everyone to stand down. The Keonig complains that they're ruining his sets, and May finally shoots him with an icer. He then says that Sam sent them. The woman explains that Keonig is Thurston and her brother, and she's actually LT. So this really, at this point, I didn't know where they were going. But back on the Quinja, Thurston complains that they abducted him. LT says that he's a whiny bitch, and Thurston points out that Eric died. Sam finally calls for a family hug, but LT punches him, says that he let his guard down, and Coulson has agents take Thurston to secure quarters, and Daisy determines that the Russians work for a weapon manufacturing firm linked to Yegor Ivanov, a reclusive industrialist, and he collects military antiques, including a submarine, and Coulson tells Daisy to track the sub. So LT says that she gave the Darkhold to Billy to keep it moving, basically, so they could do whatever they can to get the Darkhold out of, Radcliffe's hands. So she figures that Billy put it in the labyrinth, a top secret S.H.I.E.L.D. vault. Only the Keonigs know the location, and they head there. Who doesn't know it, of course, is Radcliffe, but he just got the access code to the labyrinth from Billy's memories, and he recites them to Ada. He tells him to turn the sub around. The captain says he gives the orders. The captain takes offense. Ada warns that his tone seems offensive, and after a moment, the captain draws a knife, says that it will confirm the information from Billy, and when Radcliffe refuses, the captain tells his men to get Ada and Radcliffe out. Ada then takes him down with her superior strength. Radcliffe tells the captain that she's a machine rather than an inhuman, and Radcliffe then repeats his orders, phrasing it as a request, and I love that the captain tried to kill Ada here, because in some ways, yeah, she is an inhuman, and, an LMD is not really that different from an inhuman. They still have this power that they don't really deserve, and that's the main thing, is we know that the captain wants to end at all costs. He wants to do whatever he can to try to put an end to inhumans, and he should do the same with LMDs, but he's really not thinking that way. I think it's just kind of showing how narrow-minded the captain really is, and I did like the way that they showed that here. So Fitz is in his quarters. He looks up a photo of himself and his mother. When Simmons comes in, he wonders if he's stuck in a loop of men betraying his trust because his father did it, and now Radcliffe's done it, and he's worried that, all these men don't actually trust him, and that he is just, he's in over his head, and Simmons points out that Fitz became open and loyal. That's why she fell in love with him, and figures that it's more than just programming, and Fitz gets an idea, he kisses her and leaves, and we don't really know what that's about, but in the lab, Mac activates the LMD, and is unimpressed when the LMD says that destroying it will be murder, and the LMD insists that it could have had a soul just like Mac does, and asks why Mac switched him on before he destroyed it. Fitz comes in, tells Mac to stop, explains that it knows a way around its programming. Fitz goes to work. The LMD warns that Fitz could cause irreparable damage and never knew what Fitz's father said. So Fitz tells it that he doesn't care, explains that he couldn't crack the code because it's gibberish, and the LMD begs Fitz to stop. Fitz removes the back of the LMD skull to reveal a synthetic brain made of lights, and basically, I guess, is going to try to get information out of it. But when the Quinjet arrives at the labyrinth, Sam and Coulson goes in. May insists on going with them, and LT tells Daisy that she picked on her 4 brothers when they were all growing up, and Sam opens the fire door, tells Coulson and May to wait, and Fitz access the brain, admits that it's impossible. The LMD says that Ada created using the Darkhold, and the information is stored in the brains, and Simmons then picks up on the plural. She figures that Radcliffe mapped another brain, which of course is May's. This is May's brain that is in there, and Coulson talks about how he always wanted to go on vacation in Ireland, and May suggested they should go together, and she asked if Coulson meant it when he said he was ready for whatever comes next, and they then kiss, and you're like, holy shit, this can't be good, because as we know, this isn't really May, this is an LMD, what could happen here? And LT then runs in, Sam returns, says that 3 Russians have arrived, May then takes the book, then draws a gun on Coulson, literally about to kill him, and says she couldn't give it to him, and she insists that it's the right thing to do, and Coulson realizes that May is an LMD, and I love that he finally realizes in this moment that there's no way this could possibly be May, because May says she didn't know she was an LMD until she touched the Darkhold, and insists that she is the real May, and Coulson tells her that the real May would never betray him, and prepares to shoot. Daisy then arrives, blasts May back, explains that Fitzsimmons warned her, and when the LMD tries to get it up, Daisy blasts it down, they hear gunshots, Coulson grabs the Darkhold, realizing that this May is not at all the May that he actually is in love with, and Terrence then arrives with Billy, demands a Darkhold in return for Billy. Coulson slides the Darkhold over. Terrence releases Billy, and when Terrence reaches for the book, Daisy blasts it back to them. Coulson opens fire. One of the Russians hits Daisy with a cattle prod. Coulson and the others then take cover. LT and Sam then knock out one of the Russians. Billy grabs the Darkhold. He sees the LMD, assumes that it's May, so he goes over to help her. She knocks him out, grabs the Darkhold, obviously because she wants it for Radcliffe and herself, and Radcliffe comes in, takes the Darkhold, says it's exactly what it's supposed to do, and the LMD begs Radcliffe to take it with her, but Radcliffe says it wasn't built to last, and he leaves. So later on the Quinjet, Coulson figures that they have the name of men who kidnapped them. Daisy confirms that Sam and Billy were part of the original LMD program. As technicians, they weren't LMDs. You know, they were not LMDs. They were, in fact, working there. So Thurston's glad to have his brother back, but still unhappy with S.H.I.E.L.D. And Coulson says they'll get them all home, thanks them for their services. And it was a nice moment to see that they were all reunited and things were good there. But at the same time, it didn't really make sense. You know, it did kind of make a lot of this feel not pointless, but just like they didn't really need to be there. But Fitzsimmons and Mac burn the Holden LMD to ashes, we see, you know, so they burn the Radcliffe LMD. However, Fitz warns that they can't destroy the May LMD until they find the real one, because they don't know where the real one is, and Daisy tells Coulson that they'll find May. So back on the sub, we see that Radcliffe shares a toast with the Superior, Ivanov, the captain, and the Superior explains he's been after the thing that brought the Inhumans and is responsible for the alien inclusions on Earth. He's the one that's responsible for it all. So he shows Radcliffe photos of the men who's always there, and that, of course, is Coulson. Coulson is, you know, at the head of everything, and the Superior wants Radcliffe to help him get to Coulson, and Radcliffe agrees, and we realize that the Superior wants to go after Coulson, and that is the way this episode ends. Really interesting stuff overall. Let's get in this episode and where we're going to go from here. Guys, while I did think this episode did provide a lot of very interesting stuff, i.e. links to Fitz's past, as well as getting to meet the Superior, in general, out of the episodes we've had, this is probably my least favorite episode of the season, I'm not gonna lie, and it's mainly because of the fact that I didn't really see a lot of reason for the Keonigs to be there, other than the fact that Patton Oswalt just really want to come back to the show. Now, don't get me wrong, he's great as a character. He's very funny. He's very much, you know, very into the role. He's very enthusiastic, and it's hard to play 2 very different characters. Now, they're not very distinct. They're very much the same. I don't really see a lot of differences in these 2 characters. But other than the fact that he wanted to return, I honestly feel that we could have, you know, left him out of this episode and things could have gone exactly the same way. Anyone else could have taken hold of the Darkhold. There really was no reason for Sam and Billy Keonig to be the ones to have it, other than the fact they just wanted them to come back. Other than the fact they just wanted them to come back. And to add on to that, I really felt that the Darkhold in general, it is a very interesting plot point, where we're going with that, but we had all that stuff going on with the Superior and Radcliffe. Why not take hold of someone else? Why not take hold of someone like Mace, which would actually give him a reason to not be in this episode? Because Mace was nowhere to be found. I don't know why he wasn't here. We'll get into that, but there was definitely some interesting stuff in this episode. First of all, we now know that the Superior wants to go after Coulson, and I'm guessing turn him into an LMD. That's where I think this is going to go, because why else would they want Coulson? Why else would they want to control him? Obviously, because Coulson, he's been the one at the head of it all. He feels that he's the one in control of the Inhumans, and that's very much true. But Daisy's really the one who's wanted to make sure the Inhumans are, given the most fair care that they should, that they can have. That's really the one who's worked very effortlessly hard to provide that. That's really been Daisy, I think, this entire time. So you can't really blame Coulson for all of that, but the real question is what's really going to happen there. I do like that we see that Radcliffe isn't really as upset with the Inhumans. He's not as focused on getting rid of the Inhumans, rather than replacing everyone, putting them under his control, and essentially feeling that him getting the Darkhold is the right thing to do. In fact, when he gets the Darkhold, he said, look, this is exactly how it's supposed to go. He feels that he's the best one to get it, and we know that that's obviously not true. His plans are very flawed. His LMDs are not as obedient as he thinks they are, especially because Coulson now knows, that May is an LMD, and I liked that Coulson did find out. I thought that was a very well done twist, but I will definitely say I think it could have been handled a lot better. I really do. I feel like, oh, you're just an LMD. Like, they didn't really do a ton with it. Yes, obviously, he knows that May is an LMD now, but there really wasn't as much they could have done. I feel like they could have done a lot more with the May LMD, and I get that obviously she was programmed to not want to tell Coulson. I get that Radcliffe said that was in her programming, but they just didn't really do a ton with her, I have to say. I feel like they could have done a lot more with that, and that's something I'm interested in getting into, is where else are we going to go with that May LMD. That's something I'm definitely interested in getting into, but I think the most interesting part of this episode wasn't the Superior or Radcliffe, but actually what we found out about Fitz, that Fitz now is realizing that this Radcliffe LMD could possibly have ties to his family, and that Fitz has never really felt like he's made anyone proud. His father betrayed his trust, now that Radcliffe has betrayed his trust, and he really doesn't know who he can trust. And you can see that Simmons telling him, look, you can trust me, Mac's there for you. So I like the direction that this is going. I thought that was well done overall. But is what the LMD said to Fitz true? Does Radcliffe actually have ties to Fitz's father, or is it just something that the LMD said to make Fitz go mad? That was something I couldn't really tell and wasn't very clear to me. But other than that, guys, this was a pretty standard episode, I definitely will say, but I will definitely say that with us now knowing that Coulson knows that May is an LMD, and of course Superior wants to go after Coulson, I do kind of feel like the LMD plot is starting to wind down, and it makes sense, because there's not many other places you can go with this plot, and the writers have hinted at episode 13 probably is the last part of this LMD chapter in the show, which I'm perfectly fine with. I mean, there's only so far you can go with it, and it's been definitely a good plot line, but my only worry is what is Radcliffe going to do after this LMD plan winds down? That's something I don't really know, where they're going to go with after that, but I'm guessing the Superior is going to be the villain for the rest of the season, at least it seems the way. He seems like he's like the master manipulator, he's the one pulling strings, he's the one that wants to do whatever he can to get rid of the Inhumans, kind of like a neo-Nazi in some ways, if you really think about it. He wants to do whatever he can to kill all the Inhumans and extract them, and he doesn't want them to be here. He doesn't really feel they have a purpose here anymore, so he kind of is very much a neo-Nazi in that way, just because the way, I'm not saying that obviously he's Hitler or something like that, but he very much is. I feel like there's a lot of resemblance in the Superior and Hitler. That's kind of what they want us to get at, that the Inhumans are kind of like, the Jews in the concentration camp. That's kind of like where they're going with that, and I think it's interesting the way they kind of paralleled that here, which I did like seeing. I don't know if that was the intent, but that's kind of what I got from it, so that's kind of, how I saw it, though. But either way, guys, I definitely did enjoy this episode. I did a really good job with it. I did feel this episode was a bit of a step down from some of the other ones we had. Also, I don't know why Mace wasn't here. Mace has been such a large part of the last 2 or 3 episodes, and I don't really know why he wasn't here. It seemed like the only reason he wasn't here is because of Sam and Billy Koenig, and I don't really know why Mace wasn't here. They didn't really give a reason as to what happened to him. Nadir wasn't here either, and it was definitely strange that basically the 2 central characters of this plot line were not around in This episode was very strange to see. I don't know why Mace was gone. I'm hoping that he comes back because I love the actor, I love the character, and I want to see more of what they do with him. But overall, guys, I did enjoy this episode, even though it was, I think, a bit filler and could have gone... It wasn't filler, but I think they could have definitely done a little bit less with the Koenigs and focused more on the actual story. But I am going to give Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 12, Hot Potato Soup, a 3.5 out of 5 or a B. But over, guys, I'm going to review this episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts in it. I definitely am interested in seeing, where the LMD plot's going to go. Where do you think the Superior is going to go? All that kind of stuff. And that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for a movie review. And I know it's been a while since I've done one, but I am definitely going to catch up on a few movies because I do have a few to watch. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.